Namaste. A huge privilege that we have as being a part of the Rishihood community is that every day we meet fascinating faculty members who believe in the vision of Rishihood to create social impact and are coming from very varied backgrounds. Today we have a very interesting faculty member with whom we'll be having an interaction. She's an alumnus of IIT Bombay, IIM Bangalore, and then she has chosen to leave her corporate life and build a social enterprise. She also runs her own social startup, which is into yoga and dance. So, very interesting combination of education and professional life, and also being involved in a very young enterprise. So, I thought I should pick her mind on what is it that motivates her to do this? What is it that motivates her to come back to educational institutions and share her experience? So, we have a very, very interesting person, Professor Srishti Malpath. So, I would want to all of you to listen to her and how she has made her career choices, how she has learned from her corporate life, and what is her vision for the educational system of India, and what is her advice to all our young learners out there. Welcome, Sristi ji.
Thank you.
And I understand that you're taking this course on technology and society,
Correct.
which in many ways is a very unique course that we have taught at Rishihood, because it's a multidisciplinary course. Very often, being from a technology background, which you also are, there's a sense that technology can overpower everything. It can address a lot of society's issues. But then this course is kind of giving them an exposure that how technology shapes society, but also the reverse. Society also influences technology and how it is shaped. So how has that experience been so far in the few core classes that you have taken with our students?
Right. Thank you so much for having me here, firstly. I think this course itself is very unique. I haven't heard about this in any other university as of today. And it's been a very interesting dialogue with the students. The reason also is the class that is encompassed of different majors, including psychology, education, business administration, and design. So, having people from different disciplines come and talk about a major important topic of today's time and where are we moving ahead with this. People talk about jobs being replaced, displaced. There is fear around it. There is fear around what kind of upskilling, reskilling do you need in today's world? Is education system of the past even relevant to today? I think that's what even Rishihood is trying to solve. And the classes have been very interesting in that way. That it's been educative for me as well to know what are the students' perspectives on this and to clear some of that sure there is the perception that we have, the kind of methodology we have towards even looking at college education is changing, and a lot more emphasis on personal development, lot more emphasis on learning through different disciplines within the class. So I think that's been very enriching experience.
Thank you, that's amazing. Because something that you said just caught my attention. You're saying that your interaction with the students is helping you understand the way they think. Because very often within academia, when we interface with the industry, we think we have to understand how the industry is thinking. But you have come from the industry, you're involved with the startup, and you are here. You think you also want to understand how the young generation is thinking. Why would that be? What makes you curious about the way they are thinking?
Right. I think it's constantly a two-way street, right? These are our workforce of tomorrow. And whatever skills, life skills, educational skills we impart on them is going to go a long way for our economy. And I think when we're talking about tech and economy, I think both these go hand in hand. And the fact that I think teaching and educational institutions in general are one of my favorite spaces to be in. They don't have to be, just a teacher is imparting knowledge, but the discussions that happen in class open up questions and perspectives, and I think that is the part that you cannot get from an online recorded lecture. So I think the fact that we are privileged enough to have that space here is something that I'm enjoying to explore.
Well, that's good to know. Right. Something very interesting, because you meant education, educational institutions, our curriculum. You have had education at IIT Bombay, of which I also share the same background, and then at IIM Bangalore. So when you underwent an education there, which is not too far in the past,
Hmm.
did you have exposure to such courses or such discussions at that time?
I don't recollect that. I think that is also a reason that has motivated me to work with educational institutions today, be it with Plaksha University in the past or right now visiting Rishihood. And the fact that there was a clear lack of personal development, developing your thought processes, understanding yourself and the world during the formative years was something I think we could have done better then, but that's the gap that I guess I'm trying to put in my contribution into bettering it.
Oh wow.
Right.
So I mean,
Hmm.
even studying at the premier institutions,
Hmm.
we didn't have exposure to these things.
Hmm.
A lot of us stop our motivation there,
Hmm.
right? But you have taken it a step further and saying that what we didn't have,
Hmm.
possibly in your limited capacity, you would want to address that.
Mhm.
And that's the reason you are choosing to be a visiting faculty and trying to interface with the young generation, trying to impart some things which you think is
Mhm.
relevant for them. So it's very fascinating. So
Mhm.
just going back to your education,
Hmm.
typically an IIT Bombay education followed by IIM Bangalore
Mhm.
would be an aspiration for many people which they would not have access to
Mhm.
typically, right? And the assumption is when we open up our newspaper and we see crores of packages happening,
Hmm.
and then you think, oh, an IIM plus an IIT background should be doing something else.
Mhm.
What would take you into healthcare,
Mhm.
even within healthcare, primary healthcare,
Mhm.
with a focus a lot on the rural areas and trying to address their issues? I mean, this
Mhm.
almost sounds like a social enterprise. Why would
Right.
you make this choice?
Right. So the answer is multiple fold here. Firstly, I think the time when I joined IIT Bombay, number one, I think I'm very lucky to have cracked that exam and reached that stage, which whole of India constantly is still even until today looks at it as a dream. But for me, I think at that point, I didn't know much about what I was signing into. The course, the major that I picked up there was metallurgy and material sciences. But more than the course itself, the fact that I was going to IIT Bombay and I was going to a city like Bombay, that exposure, that amount of facilities that an institute like that would offer me, the history, the people around, was what I signed in for. And the reason this motivation and the work that I'm doing and I want to continue doing with education it comes from this aspect that in our formative years, say starting even 9th 10th standard, then until 11th 12th you're still doing your coaching, and then 4 years of college, and then there is placements, and then there is job, they're your first job. So I think it's a little absurd that we spend that whole formative years in a very stressful situation where you constantly have to prove yourself, instead of probably a period where the amount of leisure in life would let you explore yourself as well as the world around you. And I think it's a little unnecessary to have that amount of competition, and that's the first part of it as to why I think it's a crucial problem to solve, and why we all are here today. Secondly, regarding my career path, I did work for a corporate company right after my MBA. But post that, I've done multiple things, experimented a lot with passion as well as how to build a livelihood. So today, where I am is trying to have the best possible balance of both. The reason I work for this healthcare company, I've joined them very recently, is because they're impact first company. They are solving for something that is a basic necessity for a country like India, and it hasn't been catered to at a full length yet. But also there's a personal drive coming from a family of my mother is a doctor, so I think growing up with that exposure, where I feel like healthcare at some level was always embedded as a very important aspect, important problem to solve. So I think when that came to my plate, I felt like a glimpse of something that I can contribute better to. So it feels, I think, satisfaction, the purpose that comes out of working for a company like that.
Oh, that's interesting
Right.
to know. Because you're saying it's a combination of your family background, which has been in areas which have an impact on society, which is
Correct.
medical background.
Hmm.
And also during, possibly you said during your
Hmm.
coaching and education, you may not have had time to think about these things, but maybe
Hmm.
during your corporate life, you
Hmm.
had some realization.
Hmm.
But that's still fairly quick
Hmm.
because many of them would realize this after burning out a few
Right.
decades into their work.
Hmm.
So, any particular instance during
Hmm.
maybe your corporate life that you felt, oh, what am I
Hmm.
doing? Should I step
Hmm.
back and rethink?
Right,
Something like that, would you
right.
want to share with us?
Yeah, a lot of instances like that. My first job was with a beer company, AB InBev, and very new. I was into sales. I was working in Gurgaon, Kochi, Bangalore, different places out there in the market, trying to understand what competitors are doing, what is marketing, what is supply chain, operations, all of it, right? Great experience and exposure to corporate world. But I think after working there for 2 years, I started questioning the most basic things about this whole concept of, I think, idolizing somebody. For example, when you grow up, people ask you, who do you want to be? I think a couple of generations before, the answer would have been easy. People would look up to, Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, and for things, for the value systems, for the contribution that they made to society. And I think these questions arise in us either when we have nobody to look up to,
Mhm,
or we have somebody to look up to.
mhm,
But they don't arise if you're living a very comfortable average job where you're satisfied with everything. I think for me that point came in when I felt like in the company that I'm working for, I don't know, I didn't know if I could point out at one person and say, this is the person I want to be in my life. And I think during that phase, I've been a dancer, I've been into a lot of, um, I think, movement practices in my life, be it dance or yoga. So I was training that aspect as well. And there is this particular art studio in Bangalore, and the woman who was running the studio, that woman gave me so much more inspiration than a lot more people I saw in the corporate world. The amount of the value system she held, the rigor, the zeal of showing up to work every day. I think that is when something switched in my mind, and I questioned that, saying, who do I want to be in life, or what do I want to be seen as in life? And that's when a lot of experimentation with my career began.
interesting.
So yeah,
So, from a beer company to a healthcare
right.
company, we'll come to that. But I think you made a very subtle and important point, and that's what we reflect at Rishihood as well,
Hmm.
that we don't have accessible role models
Hmm.
during our education.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I also reflect back on my education, in many ways it would say, oh, excellent education
Hmm.
that you have undergone, right?
Hmm.
Okay, some of our faculty were smart, so obviously the inspiration comes from, oh, they have such a good command over their discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But are there people whom we met that their careers
Hmm.
sound inspirational to us?
Hmm.
There was no forum
Right.
while we were getting educated to meet such people, interface with them. So we just chose what our seniors did. We did that.
Absolutely.
Then they make some mistakes. We follow on their path and make the same mistakes. Or if they did well, we follow that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we're trying to do at Rishihood is trying to make role models accessible. So can we
Mm-hmm.
get them in a formal setup, not in terms of just visiting and that way,
Mm-hmm.
like you are here as a visiting faculty. We also have something called a leadership colloquium.
Mm-hmm.
So every week we invite one leader in that space, right? It could be from an entrepreneurial space, it could be a public leader,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a thought leader, social leader. So many such people keep coming so that right in the first year onwards, so about 30 weeks of 15 weeks in each semester,
Mm-hmm.
30 public leaders, 30 thought leaders, combination of
Come
them come
together.
together and they are given a chance to interface with our students so that they make their choices about, oh, this is the career path that I would want to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you met one person like this,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, I mean, outside your professional life,
Right.
outside your academic life,
Mm-hmm.
as your dance teacher, and you felt, oh, this is an inspirational life that you would want to live.
Right.
So, has
Hmm.
yoga and dance
Mm-hmm.
been a part of your upbringing, or did it
Mm-hmm.
happen much later? Where did
Okay.
this inspiration come from?
Right. Um, it's been part of my upbringing. My mother used to do yoga for a long time, but also there was a dance teacher who would live right across our house. So I started my Kuchipudi Bharatanatyam training at the age of 5. It was there, but not in a very professional professional long-term manner. I had to give it up because I had to sit for IIT coaching. So I think end of ninth grade I stopped dancing. But I think it's stuck to me in ways that it helped me find myself back. And I think uh, just the mind is not enough to stimulate curiosity, stimulate expression in us. There's a lot. The rest of our body also functions, and for me, I'm a very kinesthetic person in that way. I think I like expressing, working with my body. So it's been there since my childhood, but it kept going on and off. And I think whenever I felt lost or too caught up with work and with studies, I always faced to these other art forms that kept me at par or at balance.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
So it's there since your early childhood. Very interesting thing that you mention is that that is something you fall back upon if you have to find yourself again. It has always given you some direction. But again, somehow these things are missing from our education, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, you may have extracurricular activities, you'll have clubs, but why can't it be curricular?
Right.
Because if that is something so fundamental and is helping us
Right.
identify ourselves, and you know the challenges that many of the young learners today are facing, what would be kind of your recommendation on how do we integrate this? Because we are doing many experiments like this at Rishihood, and the results are extraordinary. And you would have done similar ones with institutions that you are involved with. So what is your experience of integrating this formally into curriculum?
Right. Absolutely agree on that. It's also, I think I was having a conversation with a junior of mine. She was making her resume. And, even in a resume, we write all our work experience and everything. At the end, where nobody sees in 3-4 points, we write extracurriculars that I've learned this, I've performed here, which also reflects at how much importance we give to these things.
Yeah.
I think that's the mindset that we sort of see in whole of India in the last lot of years. And to that, my comment is, I think specialization in education is a very recent thing in history, right? Much ago, scientists that we talk about, be it Einstein or anybody of that era, people were multidisciplinary. They knew enough of language, enough of mathematics to decode the world, but also had enough life skills or enough technical knowledge on either physics or chemistry. So I think we as humans need all these aspects to grow our minds to its fullest form, and how to integrate these into our systems. At Plaksha also, my intention there was to set a curriculum of life skill courses that students can pick up and complement along with their educational aspects. I think that could be a good start to us, making it part of the curriculum, like you said, instead of, or giving it more credit, giving it more hours in your day, instead of just your classroom education.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting. So integrating it in terms of giving credits, making it part of the regular curriculum is one. And you say that we think it is not important, so we put it somewhere down, though we may feel passionately about it, but it's always there at the bottom.
Yeah.
But if you flip the lens and think from a more of a recruiter perspective, would you give it an importance when you look at a CV that, oh, this person has done very professional training in a particular art form, or sports, or any of these things which otherwise would be at the bottom of the resume? How does it look from a recruiter's perspective? Do you want to put it up there?
I think it gives when even companies are recruiting a person into their team, they want to know them at a deeper level rather than just the work that they've done. Of course, it varies from industry to industry. If it's a core technical job, it has nothing to do with your holistic personality, then sure, it's not required. But if it is a startup, if you have to work on strategy, if you need team building, if you need to manage different departments, then you probably, if you've been a sportsman in the past that has had that team spirit, it helps. And also going forward, the future of work is something that we've been actively discussing. Things that are repetitive, things that are just technical and routine will be better done by a machine or an AI. But I think the aspect of humanness that we have comes from these subtleties, these subjects of art, craft, humanities that we build over a long duration of time. And I think so companies that will look for maybe people who are all-rounded, holistic in that way, will always excel instead of people who might not have explored that part of it.
Interesting.
Right.
So, I mean, it's almost like what you're talking in your lectures, right? So you're saying that as technology is evolving, I mean, already you feel a sense of having a well-rounded personality in office is great as your colleague, but you're saying more that as time progresses and technology evolves, possibly a lot of the mechanical / the mental tasks would be better done by machines, and we may feel a sense of, I don't know, worthlessness or emptiness because there's nothing else left that you would want to pursue. So having something like this will keep you anchored, and not just as a great employee, but also in your personal life, it will give you a more fulfilling experience. That being said, you have not left it to that. You have actually built your own kind of a startup on that, right? With Yoga with Srishti. Can you tell us a bit about what this Yoga with Srishti is?
Right. I think, okay, the first part you mentioned about, right, personhood, humanhood, right? I think in the last couple of years when we've become super intensely involved in our just day jobs or technical jobs, there's two aspects of it. We have sort of lost the gist of all these other forms of learning, exploring ourselves. And today we are at a stage where it's sort of boomeranging on us, and we are people are realizing that I am actually just an engineer. I know nothing, and they're trying to explore other things. They're going to a yoga class, a meditation class, learning a new language, art, and so on, to bring in that personhood from within us. That is something similar that I built my enterprise on. After leaving my first corporate job, the reason I left was because it didn't feel sustainable in the long run. I saw my peers who were highly educated, highly accomplished, but leading lives which were just repetitive and sort of how do I say, like not very enriching on a day-to-day basis. You work through the week, and you either sleep or party on the weekend, and it's just gone, right? And I felt like at that age, just fresh out of MBA was fine, but looking at it from 10 years down the lane, it didn't make sense to me, and that's when I pursued complete education in yoga and Ayurveda and started my enterprise. The core vision of the enterprise was to cater to individuals, corporates, as well as institutions, and run courses and workshops around integrating yoga and Ayurveda in current times. So there was a phase when I was visiting US for a trip, but for a 2-month period, I really explored the space by teaching yoga workshops in a few states, in New York, Miami, and San Diego. Wherever I visited, I made sure that I find some connection, and I host a workshop there. And same when I came back to India, I think I worked with different corporations, with Bain, Qualcomm, catering to their employees. And I think when people took it with an understanding mind, and everyone reassured this is actually required. We are so stressed out, we need something to anchor us to ourselves and understand ourselves better. I think that gave me more assurance that this is something it's a need of the hour, and need to continue it. So that's how the enterprise started. It has been going on since I think just before COVID until now. I think again, I said the balance of livelihood versus passion, and how much do you want to explore your passion. Also, there's a lot of parameters involved in that, right? You either stick to the value system so well that you don't become too corporate or commercial, or you need to seek that balance. So as of now, I'm trying to do that.
Interesting. Because this is, in that sense, the holy grail, if you can find it, right? Your passion, your livelihood, and it also fits a market need, if you want to call it, right? You're saying that it is an emerging need, and more people are asking for it. That, oh, our corporate lives seem a bit empty on the weekend, and we feel that we want to fill it with something, and that's where you come in. But if you have to turn back and guide the learners at Rishihood, who will ask, So they tell me this, right? So you went and worked for Amazon when it was a startup. You worked with Jeff Bezos. You made some money in the US. Then you came back, and they'll ask you this probably, "Ma'am, you worked for a beer company. You sold this. So you did all this, and now you're telling that this is there. So should we also choose to work in the corporate life for a few years before we make the switch, or do you think that you would advise the learners to, okay, why don't you go that path, get into this and chase your passion
Right.
and build an enterprise yourself? What would be your advice?
I think it's a very difficult question, but I wouldn't. So, my answer to this is the world we live in today is very difficult. If I just say follow your passion, forget everything else, it's a very not a useful advice to give, and that's something that I am still trying to figure it out. I think the advice I would give here is to hone your path in the sense, pick something that you're good at, you're passionate about, or that you can contribute to. The company that I'm working for today is not, I have my passion separate from the company. But the reason I'm doing that is because I am able to contribute to the company, and they are able to contribute to my necessities, the kind of role, the kind of leadership advantage they're giving me, and so on. So I think it's about number one, understanding that there is different levels, different stages you go throughout your life, and success doesn't have to come to you right out of college. It probably takes 10 years, 20 years, and so on. But I think constant understanding of why you are doing, intention setting into whatever you take up, even if it's a corporate job. If your intention is to learn for 2 years, that to develop that competency, great, do that. And if you think on the side you can still give time to your passion, then great, do that. It's the same question I asked in today's class as well. That introduce yourself, tell me what you're studying, and third, tell me what you're passionate about. It's important because the passion is not just a way to spend time, but to keep our passion alive, keeps us alive in a way. So the reason I said I fall back on dance or movement is because even if I'm not performing, even if I'm not doing it in a big scale, it helps me be myself a little better. So I think finding these things, that is again the whole overarching narrative of this, is that you find what works for you. You curate your life in a way that it works for you, and not something that everybody, there's no like single answer. Right.
So you're saying everything is like a stepping stone. Everything gives you and makes you in some way. So in that sense, your corporate life trained you on some things eventually, which is useful in what you're doing. Can you elaborate a bit on your educational experience as well? Some of the ones who would disagree would say, "Oh, you went to an IIT and then an IIM." They tell me also, "Oh, did you waste a seat?" Because somebody else who wanted to pursue this couldn't get in. You took up that seat and then did something else, which is not of your domain. So is this a waste, or do you see, when you, like Steve Jobs famously says, you can connect the dots looking backward? So would you see your educational experience also contributing to how Srishti thinks today?
I think absolutely yes. Like I said, I think when at the age of 17, 18, when I started my undergraduation, I think also school education at that point wasn't well aware or explored. Teachers had no advice to give you. What do I study next? Either you do math, physics, chemistry, or you do biology, or like you do CA ship. There was very, very limited awareness and limited options for us to understand and make a like a proper decision at that age. So the reasons for which I chose the institute or the engineering was very different. But IIT has given me a lot. The fact that the kind of facilities they have, the network, the interconnectedness, that I'm still, I think, sort of thriving on. I think I still, I think, give credit to my background and my the university for these aspects. I do get these, I think, comments every now and then. There was this interview I had done, which is on YouTube even today, and some anonymous comment there saying, I think something like, "Srishti, you wasted a seat of IIT and IIM," which makes me laugh now. But I think education needs to empower you. The subject is not important. What you learn outside the classroom, in the classroom, through the faculty you meet, through everything else, has to build you into a person that you can live with. And I think that is what both the institutions have given me. So absolutely yes, I think the connecting dots make
Yeah.
sense to me.
Interesting. You're
Hmm.
saying your campus experience,
Hmm.
the colleagues, the friends that you made
Hmm.
there, and many of these networks are still alive. So
Right.
it's we may not remember as much about what we were taught in those
There.
courses.
Right.
That
Hmm.
very soon goes away.
Right.
Any comments you would have in general for
Right.
what we missed, and any advice
No,
to
I
our
think it's
learners?
absolutely great what Rishihood is, what Rishihood's vision is, and the kind of faculty, at least the ones I've met in just a day here, it's been very impressive, motivating, and I think your students are very lucky to have that. And to create a space like this which will brew more conversations like these, more interactions with people, visiting faculty, students, and entrepreneurs, is something that will go a long way in enriching a student's journey of college life. So I think I feel very lucky to have been part of this in a small way. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your time,
Right.
and thank you for this very interesting comment that
Hmm.
you have seen a lot in the world, you have traveled globally, you have studied
Hmm.
in great institutions, and you still think that what Rishihood is attempting to do is
Hmm.
creating a very unique space, because that's what we intend to do. And
Hmm.
if in the day you could experience that,
Hmm.
in many ways, I mean, we feel very proud that we have been able to create
Hmm.
such a space which talks about impact, which talks about career success, which talks about personal success, right? And at the end of it, creating a better society. So, how do we combine all these three things together is what we are pursuing.
Hmm.
And thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. You can see it already happening here.
Right.
Thank you for your
Very,
time.
very excited for where Rishihood goes ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you once again.